Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Alright, Hebrews. Man, I see how we can take our heritage back. We can get our heritage back. Easy. It's easy for us to get our heritage back. If you look throughout history, and I'm talking about you can look at all the Israelites videos, they don't contain this information. And if you look throughout history about information about the Israelites, specifically the 10 lost tribes, you're going to see that it's never any mention of the Hebrews running into Africa. I'm talking about nowhere in history have they mentioned Hebrews running into Africa to live. You know, they got little sources. I think they might try to mention it in the Talmud, or when one of those Edomite rabbis was having a discussion with another rabbi, and they probably said that, you know, that they ran into Africa, but mostly what they was talking about was the Yemenite Jews. You know, I got videos showing how the Yemenite Jews, Eliphaz's son, you know, Edom's son, Eliphaz's son, Teman, name is Yemen, and how the Yemenite Jews went into Africa. You know, the Yemenite Jews come from the Hermite community that was in Saudi Arabia and in Yemen, and how they would go over into Ethiopia and then throughout, you know, Africa, you know, how they became the Limbas, you know, down in Zimbabwe and so forth. You know, I got videos explaining this. I just did a recent video, man, of how the Jews come from Yemen, went from Yemen over into Ethiopia, and then on down to Zimbabwe. You know, them will be the Edomite Jews. You know, Edom, you know, took over our heritage when we broke covenant. You know, a lot of people start claiming Israelite heritage when we broke covenant. It was a lot of people still in our land. So those people that was in our land when we ran off would claim an Israelite heritage, and to be their descendants. They all connected together. But how, you know, they would come from Yemen and go over into Ethiopia, and then from Ethiopia, you know, over to Nigeria and so forth. But a lot of those Nigerian Jews, the Igabus, gonna come from a back migration of the Sephardims coming from Spain. You know, when the Edomite temple was destroyed, and then how they had, you know, ran across North Africa and went into Spain, the Edomite Jews, you know, did. And it's also recorded in the New Testament how some of those Jews were dispersed during Greek time, and how that when Jesus said that he gonna be missing, that the folks ain't gonna be able to follow him where he go, and then them Jews asked him, where is you gonna go to the dispersed among the Greeks to teach the Gentiles? You know, so, you know, man, it's a whole lot of confusion going on. But yeah, they had made Jews everywhere, and those Jews would, you know, go throughout North Africa when her Edomite temple was destroyed in 70 AD, and then go into Spain, and then they would do a back migration, and then plus they had trade routes throughout the whole Africa. You know, the Jews did, the Sephardians did. I got videos of this, and then this how a lot of those people would claim Israelite heritage. It's from when them Jews had trade routes and so forth, even in China and Japan, everywhere. But we could take our heritage back easy, Hebrews. All we got to do is show them that it wasn't no 10 lost tribes, as I show in all the videos, and we'll be on the way to taking our heritage back. See, a lot of these Hebrew organizations, they don't teach that the Hebrews went into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, and how their history is in alignment with our enemies, and how they teach false history and teach that 10 lost tribe myth, helping our enemies keep our heritage. You know, like I said, you know, the Jews, the Sephardi's went everywhere doing trade. Man, they had trade routes all over. And then they trade routes, they would convert, you know, some of the people. Man, and they in them lands where they went to. Man, they had, you know, especially trade routes from Yemen. Look, you see that's coming from here all the way down to Yemen, and then Yemen over into Ethiopia, and then how they always had Jewish factions in Egypt and so forth. They wouldn't never lose their grip on Egypt, and how they went all the way over here to West Africa and had trade routes. You know, those are trade routes. Let's get a look close. Those are trade routes. Those are trade routes all over. And they will convert folks. This is the Jewish trade routes. In this organization, this guild was called the Randanites. The Randanites. Those are the merchants. And they would eventually turn into the Dutch East African Company. And we know what they did and how they got down during the transatlantic slave trade. All right, Hebrews, we could take our heritage back. We can take our heritage back from the enemies, because they've been basing their Israeliteness up off that 10 lost tribe myth. And I got, you know, I just recently did a video that it was no 10 lost tribes, and I guess we're gonna have to push this no 10 lost tribe to everybody get on it until we all understand, because this is the key to open the door. You get to open the door and come into your heritage when we show that it wasn't no 10 lost tribes. See, like I said, never throughout history did our enemies ever mention, never throughout our history did our enemies ever mention that the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. You know, they know that if they had said that the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, then that's basically the end of they falsehood and them trying to perpetrate as being Israelites. It'll come to an end real fast, and how that they never mentioned during the Babylonian Wars. Yeah, they'll say the Hebrews went into Africa during the Roman and Greek times, because they know that that was them. But they ain't gonna never say that the Hebrews went into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. And that's the history that the Tanakh support. The Tanakh showed that the whole Israelite community went into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. And I show Hebrews over and over. 2nd Chronicles chapter 30, King Hezekiah, and chapter 34, 2nd Chronicles chapter 34, dealing with King Josiah, how that they had all the tribes there, and then how Israel was there during King Josiah time when he cleaned the whole kingdom up from the Egyptian religion, and how the Egyptians would kill King Josiah and put us back on the Egyptian religion, and we would go into Africa, all the tribes, since all the tribes was there during King Hezekiah time. See, our enemies been getting away because ain't nobody been challenging them. Ain't nobody saying these so-called black leaders, I tell y'all and show y'all how they delusional. They don't even know real Israelite history, and then they got folks talking about that they the leaders of the Israelite community, and they don't even know real Israelite history, and how they using Jewish myths, passing them off as truths to the Israelites. Okay, Hebrews, we can take our heritage back. It's easy to take our heritage back. And I know that every Hebrew that associate with me and understand his history know that they are Israelites. It's just a feeling that, you know, you just get with studying with the Israelite Brotherhood. You know that you're an Israelite because I have the proof. And I've been showing this. But, you know, I want you Hebrews to listen to this madness. This is where our enemies rule come from. This is where they power come from. You know, they whole power come from them telling these lies. You know what I'm saying? Listen to this character.
In the Bible, a group of Jewish tribes who were captured by the invading Assyrians and deported, and they were largely ignored throughout history until the 1600s, when Matteo Ricci discovered that there were Jews in China. And quickly, people began developing a lot of theories around where these other Jews could be. Since in the 17th century, Manasseh, then Israel, thought that all the South American tribes were some sort of lost Jewish tribes.
10 lost tribes to conquer the whole world.
There were a lot of theories going around that the Japanese were a lost tribe, the French were, the Dutch were, and in recent...
See, them folks crazy. They say that the Dutch, the English, the British, all them folks are Israelites. How did they come to believe that they was Israelites? You know, and it's easy to show that that's falsehood. But, you know, a majority of those myths about Israel being in other places is going to come about those Sephardi's going to other lands. And then plus, Ashkenazi chased us into Africa under the name Scythian. They made up the Chaldean army and how they would chase us into Africa during the Babylonian wars, and then how they would settle in the promised land, and then start claiming the Israelite heritage, and then they would settle in Scythopolis. And then, you know, some of them Ashkenazi folks, the Scythians, would go back to their territory. They would go back to their territory and playing like they Israelites, and then they would go to other parts of Europe, and then, you know, convert them folks and marry into them folks and start Israelite tribes. So you got a whole bunch of fake Israelites coming off Ashkenazi who settled in our land during the Babylonian wars. You know, I'm going to show some of this. You know, they settled in our land during the Babylonian wars, and Ashkenazi name in history is Scythian. And they settled in the Discopolis cities. In the Discopolis cities, that's throughout the whole New Testament. The head city was Scythopolis. And then they would go to their territory. You know, they would go to their land. And then I got a map showing where the Scythians come from. They was above Assyria. And those was the people that destroyed Assyria and then would eventually come to our land. But you see how this is where the Scythians at. That's where they stayed at. And that's like right here at the Caucasus Mountain. You see that say Caucasus Mountain? That's where the Scythian Ashkenazi come from. And when Ashkenazi got our heritage and started claiming the Israelite heritage, he would go back to his lands, and then he would go take our heritage to the folks in Europe, especially to the British folks. You know, them right off they can. Germany is Ashkenazi homeland. Ukraine, you know, this is what the Khazars was, you know, but that was later on. This was way before the Khazars, about 2,000 years. Ashkenazi been in our heritage about 2,000 years before the Ashkenazi come around. Ashkenazi got in our heritage around about 588 BC. And then the Khazars come around about 669 BC, and then they went out around about 990 something BC or something like that. 960 AD. You know, they come in 660 AD, and they went out around about 990 AD or something like that. But they had enough time to go to Ethiopia at the end of their empire and get with some of them Ethiopian Jews, and then take them up to Europe, and then they children were ruled, and then that's when some of the Hebrews today see some of them pigmented peoples on the throne and say, that's us, we ruled in Europe everywhere, and all that old crazy stuff. Soon as they see a pigmented person on the throne somewhere outside of Africa, they'll swear up and down that that's us, you know. But the Khazars had went and got some of the Ethiopians and then took them to Ukraine, and you could type in the genealogy thing of some of the Ethiopian queens, marrying the Ukrainian Khazarian folks. All right, so we know the Ashkenazi is the Khazars. Brother Togarmah gave birth to the Khazars, and how Ashkenazi is the oldest brother, and how Ashkenazi got our heritage, and how Prophet Noah would say that Japhet's children would settle in Shem's house, and how Canaan would be his servant. Let's look at some more of this. But we can take our heritage back easy. It's easy for us to get our heritage back. All we got to do is show that them folks telling lies about the 10 lost tribes. Because if we show that they telling lies about the 10 lost tribes, then it come back to us, the people from the transatlantic slave trade, the Hebrews that ran into Africa that would eventually be enslaved during the transatlantic slave trade are the real Hebrews, because the curses and everything that the prophet prophesies on the Hebrews if they broke the covenant is on us, identical, and that the Hebrews did run into Africa, all the tribes. So therefore our enemies telling them 10 lost tribes lies. All we got to do is take that back from them. Listen to this devil.
Christian sect is that the British originate in the 10 lost tribes, more precisely the tribe of Dan. The word British.
Now, I'm going to show that that's a lie, that the British couldn't have been from the tribe of Dan, because during King Hezekiah time, he sent the letter from Beersheba to Dan, the end of our inheritance. So, it wouldn't make no sense to send a letter from Beersheba all the way to Dan and ask them to come to the Passover dinner. You see, that wouldn't make no sense. All right, listen to him, man. These folks is mad. I'm here to tell you. Now, he say that the Israelites left with the Scythians, and we know who the Scythians is. The Scythians ain't nothing but Ashkenazi. The Scythians ain't nothing but Ashkenazi. The Scythians ain't nothing but Ashkenazi, and they'll tell you this in their history. If you type in Ashkenazi or Scythian, they gonna say Ashkenazi lived in the Scythian region, and they all one and one and the same. And then, we know that Ashkenazi was a son of Gomer. Ashkenazi was a son of Gomer. And then we know that Ashkenazi, the Scythians, made up the Chaldean army when they destroyed Nineveh in 612 BC. Put an end to the Assyrian Empire forever. They put Assyria lights out. Assyria was some robbers, and that's all they ever did was rob. They just robbed and kidnapped folks and incorporated folks into their armies and so forth. And then they was having trouble with them Scythians, them people coming up out the Caucasus Mountain, and they needed our help. And we was on Egyptian religion, so we couldn't help them like, they wanted us to. And then that started that 10 lost tribe myth, because they'll say that the Assyrians came and took 10 tribes, the 10 tribes of Israel, and took them off to Assyria, and then from Assyria, how they went through a magic water hole. Or some of them say, well, that we know that the northern kingdom was wicked and on Egyptian religion, so we know that wasn't going too much change, because they had went into a captivity. And then how the Jewish books got these Hebrews saying that they say that they couldn't do the law in Assyria, so therefore they went to a farther land called Azarias. Me and them Hebrews don't know that our history, our heritage fell into the hand of some Babylonian scribes. I got plenty of videos explaining this, and that's why come Israelites don't really know Israelite history, because soon as you come into Israelite history, you got to go through the myths, the Jewish myths, and that become part of you, those Jewish myths, unless you blessed to break out of it some kind of way. Some Hebrews don't know about the Israelite Brotherhood history and how we done separated Jewish history from Israelite history, and how those Hebrews know that those books outside the Tanakh ain't right. You know, that's like the Tobias, the Maccabees, the all the Apocalypse books, the book of Enoch, all those books the Jews wrote and played with and created stories and stuff. Hebrews don't know that our heritage fell into the hands of the Babylonian scribes when we went back to Egyptian religion and was driven out the land, and that the people that was placed in Samaria in 722 BC were Babylonian scribes, Amorites. Yeah, Amorites. You know, we abandoned our heritage to the Amorites, and a lot of Hebrews don't know this, and they don't have this in their history, and that's why their history be off, and then they be sounding crazy, you know, because they don't understand that we abandoned our heritage to some Babylonian scribes. Now, Babylonian scribes are responsible for all Babylon's God's history, Aniki, Murdoch, Nabu, the Gilgamesh epics, you know, and then they so cold today that they refining their cuneiform texts, and how that they the only people, the Jews are the only ones that can translate it and tell you what it say. And then also how those Babylonian god history, the destructive Babylonian gods history is intertwined in our society today. Yes, man, it's awful. But the Amorites, we abandoned our heritage to the Sephardims. You know, Sippar was founded, the Amorites founded Sippar. The Amorites founded Babylon. The Amorites founded Babylon, and then the king of Assyria would bring these folks to our land. They probably played them while we was on Egyptian religion. You know, this is where the Sephardims come from, Sippar, and then they was brung to our land during the Assyrian troubles, and they stayed there. But they was Babylonian scribes responsible for all Babylon's history. I'm talking about all this God's history and been around. They go back to the giants, the Amorite giants, Og, and them folks that we was supposed to have destroyed when we came out of Egypt, and how that they are descendants from the Nephilims and the Raphilims, the giants that was in Mesopotamia, them gods in Mesopotamia. If you look at some of their relics, you'll see that they got a dude standing in front of a giant dude and stuff, and that how those supposed to been the fallen angelic beings, and then how that those Amorites were mixed up with them, and how those Sephardims are Amorites, and they will be placed in Samaria. See, this is where all the false history and the myths gonna come from, those folks, because them people are responsible for all the myths and legend in Babylon. They go back like 3,000 years before we was an Israelite nation. You know, that's why some Hebrews be wondering why the Jews on top and how they stay on top and how they control society and can kick back in the cut and run things and have everybody like a puppet on a string. It's because they've been having civilization for like 3,000 years before we was even the Israelite nation. Before Abraham, our father Abraham, was born, the Sephardims and them folks been around. You know, the Amorite culture been around and been had civilization, and that's why come they the masters of Western civilization. You know, the United States, they run this country, and that's why this country served those Jews over in the promised land, because them Jews set this country up. You know, when they got chased out of Spain, you know, Ashkenazi and the Sephardis been having proxy wars for a long time. They've been having proxy wars for a long time. You know, Ashkenazi and the Sephardi groups been having proxy wars for a long time about controlling our heritage. You know, that's like this. The Sephardic idea was always understood in terms of political moderation and community unity. Rarely did Sephardim lose their internal cohesion, that is, until the process of cultural erosion set in. following the Ashkenazi lead, Sephardim abandoned their traditional culture and adapted to the fractious Ashkenazi model under the rubric of a single Jewish nation. And that's what you have now today. And Prophet Noah prophesied that this would happen too, when he said that Canaan would be a servant to Japhet, because remember that the Sephardics are Amorites, and how the Amorites are descendants from Canaan. You know what I'm saying? The Canaanites. All right. This is until the process of cultural erosion set in following the Ashkenazi lead. Sephardim abandoned their traditional culture and adapted to the fractious Ashkenazi model under the rubric of a single Jewish nation. The Sephardi, particularly with its cultural genius and sophisticated social morals, has become a lost value. The Ashkenazi culture, with its deeply unsettled relationship to the larger world, has now become the Jewish standard. You know what I'm saying? Those are the new world order folks. But look, let me show you how the prophet Noah prophesied that would happen. How the Canaan would be a servant to Japhet, and how Japhet would be in Shem's house. And Shem's house is our territory, our land. You know, you go to Genesis 9:27. I turn right to it. Praise be Almighty. All right. Yah shall enlarge Japhet. He shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. You see how the Sephardi's are servant to the Ashkenazi by their own mouth, and how the Sephardi's are nothing but Amorites. They ain't nothing but Amorites. And the Amorites are the founders of Babylon. But those are the people who told that lie and got the lie started will be the Babylonian scribes in the beginning, before Ashkenazi got in there and took everything over and stuff. But they work hand in hand. And how they both tell lies on the Israelite heritage. Like I say, some of them folks, the Ashkenazi, got in our heritage with the Chaldeans, and they settled in Scythopolis, and how that they made up the Babylonian army, and then they would come chase us into Africa, and how they still finding arrowheads right now today. So if we Hebrews can show that these people are not Israelites, and that the Hebrews ran into Africa, as I'm gonna show, as well, like that, probably about 4 or 5 videos dedicated to this subject. But for some reason, Hebrews ain't getting on the bandwagon. They sleep and don't know this is how we snatch our heritage from them. We can snatch our heritage from them, because all we got to do is say, hey, it never was any 10 lost tribes, and that all the tribes ran into Africa, all the Hebrews. You know what I'm saying? And then we got proof, because the book of Jeremiah, he's showing you how all the Israelites ran into Africa. Now Judah gonna be our last inheritance, because we was driven out the east during the Babylonian wars. Everybody was driven to Judah's inheritance, and then started to go into Africa. As I've showed, man, I got maps showing how the promised land ain't nowhere. Man, the promised land ain't nowhere for Egypt, man. And I might even pull that up now, showing that the promised land ain't nowhere from Egypt, and how that these folks been pulling a fast one on us. Man, been pulling a fast one on us, because the promised land ain't nowhere from Egypt. Nowhere. And how that they gonna hang it up when we start showing that the promised land ain't nowhere from Egypt, and that how that the people would run to Egypt during the Babylonian wars. And it's a satellite, man. I kind of really hate using the map, the paper map now, because the satellite's so sweet, and then they show you what's going on. Look, this is Egypt. All that cities right there. This is where we would have, you know what I'm saying, this is where we ran to. And then as I show on that map, how this ain't nothing but a skip in the hop. A skip in the hop. This is the promised land right here. You know, that map ain't just clearing up all the way. Devils might be catching on. But that's Egypt. How it wasn't nowhere for us to run right there to right there. Alright, Hebrews. We can take our heritage back from our enemies by showing that they've been telling a lie about the 10 lost tribes, because the 10 lost tribes is what connect our enemies to our heritage besides the ones that settled in our land, and we can easily show that they settled in the land. And like I say, you know, them Scythians, Ashkenazi, shot the promised land up and then settled in the Discopolis, and then how they would go back to their homeland, you know, as Israelites later on. They would go back to their homeland as Israelites later on, and how some of them participated in the Greek campaigns, the Scythians, against the Persians when they destroyed Persia after the exiles come home. But, you know, before, you know, when the exiles were taken to Babylon and the 99% went into Africa, we didn't come back out to be reunited with the exiles. You know, the 99% that ran into Africa. I'm going to get into that history right here. But listen to this. Listen to this devil right here. Listen to him.
Mentioned also in this document is the departure of the children of Israel 1,200 years earlier from Scythia by way of the Tyrrhenian Sea, now called the Mediterranean Sea, and by the Pillars of Hercules.
Now this devil gonna say that the Hebrews went to Scythia, right here where Ashkenazi at, and then went on up to Europe, as I showed that all that history is false, and that our enemies who we abandon our heritage to, that will be them going up there since the BC days. You remember, we abandoned our heritage in 588 BC to them Jews, to Ashkenazi and the Sephardists. But really the Sephardists, it was Ashkenazi chased us up off the land. We wouldn't have abandoned nothing if it wasn't for them chasing us up off the land. You know, they chased us up off the land into Africa under the name Scythia, and how, you know, we didn't never return back out of Africa, and then how that, you know, they would claim our heritage, you know. And then I can also show that, you know, during Jesus' time, that how some of them Ashkenazi folks, because it would be only Ashkenazi in the Discopolis who Jesus would be dealing with. And then as I show you how them folks took on our heritage, you know, that how hip hop is and so forth, and how, you know, they would dress like us and start to act like us, as you see them images, man, of them folks trying to, you know, mimic the people of the times. And that how it would be when they settled in our land. They'll put on our clothes, they'll take on our names and everything, and then they'll start claiming the Israelite heritage, because the real Israelites ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars. You know, like I say, if we could show our enemies that we ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars, and they don't have no history of this, they didn't write no history to try to cover it up, they just left that blank history, and they was praying hopefully that nobody stumbled across it, you know. But how could you not stumble across that the Israelites ran into Africa if you're reading the Tanakh history? But really what helped is that the dates in the timeline. You know what I'm saying? When we learn the dates in the timeline, it's a wrap. You know, it was a wrap. You know, when, you know, this happened in BC, this time this happened in 600 BC, and this happened in 722 BC. When you start learning the BC days, it's over with. It's like game over with, you know.
Unless you understand that the Greeks are the Israelite tribes.
See, pure crazy. He say that the Greeks are the Israelite tribes, and a lot of this lost tribe myth gonna come from the New Testament too, because the demigod Jesus, you know, they got him saying that he's out for the lost tribes of Israel, trying to find them, and that how he was only sent to them. But people don't know is that he was talking about the people in the Discopolis cities that had settled there. See, Jesus didn't know the Ashkenazi settled in the Discopolis city. Jesus didn't know that because this was 500 years before Jesus was born. And then if Jesus would have knew the Ashkenazi settled in the Discopolis, then he would have knew about the Babylonian wars, and then he would have knew that the Hebrews had ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars, which Jesus didn't know that the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars. Because if Jesus would have known that the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars, he wouldn't have never turned his back on them. See, when Jesus went to Egypt when he was a baby and then popped up, I think when he was 32 or something like that, and then he had spent all that time in Egypt in the mystery system in the Melchizedek school that was in Egypt, and he became a high priest in there, and that how he never went throughout Africa looking for the Israelites, and then how that during Jesus' time, you know, it wasn't nothing but Greeks and Romans and Caucasians that ran Egypt, you know. And then some Hebrews would say, oh, if Jesus was black, that's why come. If Jesus was white and then he would have went to Egypt, it would have been easy to find him. Man, y'all logic messed up and you don't know history. How about the Greeks took Egypt over in 332 BC, ran all the real black folks away. They went into the Sahara because ain't nowhere in the world you could stay around them vicious Greeks and then the Romans. It's suicidal to live among them, especially when they was taking the people land as conquerors. If you was there, they'd kill you and take your land back then. And how in 332 BC, all those non-pigmented people set up that by the time Jesus would have come now 332 years later, that it wasn't nothing but white non-pigmented peoples. Just like how America, all the natives was around everywhere. They say 50 million of them. But then look, in 400 years, you know, you don't hardly see no Native Americans. You got to go west to see them. But Jesus would have been seeing him, the Ptolemy. He would have seen nothing but them statues of the Ptolemy. And then how when Jesus went to Egypt, it would have been hard for him to hide as a black person, being that the whites controlled Egypt for 332 years before Jesus was born. 332 years before Jesus was born. And then I got in history how it was a whole bunch of Jesus. A whole bunch of Jesus. But that Jesus helped promote that 10 lost tribes stuff too. Because when he said that he was only sent for the house of Israel and for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, that he was among those Scythians trying to educate them about an Israelite heritage. Because like I say, the Scythians been in the promised land since 588 BC. That by the time Jesus was born and then came around, the Scythians would have been in our land 600 years. 600 years. So Jesus would have thought all those non-pigmented peoples that lived in the Discopolis and everywhere in Galilee and the Discopolis, he would have thought that they was Israelites because they was claiming the Israelite heritage. And then I'm gonna show how Jesus had them Greek folks. You know how them folks said that he was going to hang out. You know that was he gonna disappear with the dispersed that was they had went into the Greek lands. So, you know, Ashkenazi had went into the Greek lands, as I show you that man say that the Ashkenazi, the Scythians were Israelites and went to Europe. But look at this here. See, this is where that 10 lost tribe gonna come from. And if we could show that these folks telling a lie about that 10 lost tribe, then we could easily get our heritage. Look. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles and into the cities of the Samaritans, enter ye not, because them folks already knew them Samaritans were the where the Sephardians was kicking it. I already knew the scripture, so they'll be wasting their time go trying to talk to them, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and go preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So he was teaching that those people that was in the promised land in the Discopolis and Scythopolis were Israelites, as I show you that they thought that they were after settling in our land after the Babylonian wars. And this is when they chased us into Africa. Let me show that, and then I'm going to find some kind of way to get into showing how them folks ain't no Israelites. And then how all the Hebrews ran into Africa. But the Scythians made up the Chaldean army, and this them chasing all of us into Africa. And I'm going to go into this and been a little more in detail with the book of Jeremiah. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they was afraid of the Chaldeans. That's all the Hebrews. That's everybody. All of them, besides the ones that had got captured and took it to Babylon, which was just a fruit. And then how everybody else ran into Africa to live, and how we never came back out of Africa, and how history has been quiet on this piece of history right here. This little piece of history right here is what they've been quiet on. They ain't never said that the Hebrews went into Africa during the Babylonian wars, and this is how we take our heritage back from them, because we could show that all the Hebrews was there after the Assyrian captivity, and then how King Josiah would be after the Assyrian troubles, and how everybody was there during King Josiah time. Is how he fulfilled the prophecy of cleaning Israel and Judah up of the Egyptian Jeroboam religion, as did happen. And we was free from Egyptian religion for 31 years. All right, but you see what that devil say right there. Let's see what this say. All right, but he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Jesus couldn't have been sent from the Creator, for the simple fact is that if Jesus was sent from the Creator to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, then he should have spent his whole time in Africa searching for the Israelites that ran into Africa to say that they was going to do the Egyptian religion, who represent us, the people from the transatlantic slave trade. So that's how we know that, dude wasn't sent from the Creator, and how it was a bunch of Jesus. And if you search each one of those Jesus history that I got posted there, you're going to see all of them thought that they was holy, and all of them died just about the same way, and they was all doing the same error as the so-called Jesus Christ. Christ just supposed to mean anointed, but how they done turned that into his name and so forth. Them people's crazy. All right, look, we know that the Ashkenazi and them Sephardi Jews went off into the Greek Empire, as I've got plenty of history, and they have history documented themselves of the Jews converting to Hellenism, into Greek culture and so forth, and accepted Greek culture. That's what the Hasmoneans fight was about, how that those Jews were incorporating Greek culture and was abandoning, what they had stolen and so forth. And then that's, the Jews from Babylon, the ones we abandon our heritage to, are international people, and that they like to, embrace other nations and make them into one. Incorporate all nations into one, the one world government. But look what this says. Then said Jesus unto them, wait yet a little while, I am with you, but then I go unto him that sent me. Probably could have been Philo in Egypt, who was the boss, who was the high priest of the Egyptian mystery system, Melchizedek order. Yet shall ye seek me and shall not find me. Where I am, thither ye shall not come. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will ye go that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? So them gonna be the Greeks and Roman folks. You know what I'm saying? Them going to live among them folks. Them Jews had dispersed among them. and went to other lands and so forth. Alright? But you see, oh, Jesus, it was a lot of them. You know? And let's get to some of this history where I can show that these folks telling a lie. And first of all, I want to do this here because we know during the Assyrian Empire that this had to happen during the Assyrian Empire while the Assyrians around, and that if the Assyrians had took any tribes of Israel like our enemies say, and then that they took some Egyptians and some Ethiopians too. So the Egyptians and Ethiopians should have been in those other nations where they say that the tribes of Israel were. But if you go search in history, nada, zero. That's like, you know, I got the showing that Tigernus the Great took all those Jews from the promised land, and then how none of them wasn't black. You know, Tigernus the Great was a Armenian king, and he took Jerusalem over, and then how he went back to his homeland with about 30,000 Jews, and how none of them wasn't black. So, you know, sum up with that, and this is like 50 years before Jesus was born. You know, and you can look at the Armenian culture right now today and see that ain't no black folks was taken there during Greek and Roman time. And how that, you know, our enemies been pulling a fast one, because like I say, our history fell into the Babylonian scribes' hand. But if you look here, during the Syrian times is where they, you know, make the lie come off of, and then this is how we bust them up. Like I said, we could take our heritage back from them easy. All we got to do is show it wasn't no 10 lost tribes, and that's the end of that. Look, all right. And Elohim said, like as my servant Isaiah hath walked naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign and a wonder upon Egypt and upon Ethiopia, so shall the king of Assyria lead away the Egyptian prisoners and the Ethiopian prisoners, young and old, naked and barefoot, even with their buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt. So here it is, the Ethiopians and the Assyrians, and the Egyptians, the Ethiopians and the Egyptians were prophesied to get taken prisoners by the Assyrians. And this was wrote in 725 BC. This is 3 years before the Assyrian captivity is supposed to took place. Okay, Hebrews, I got a video showing that the Assyrian captivity is not what our enemies have told the world that it's been. Like I say, our history fell into the Babylonian scribes' hands, so they gonna tell a lie on the Israelite history every which way that they can. And then they did that mostly with that 10 lost tribe lie. That 10 lost tribe lie got them in there real good, because, you know, they can, you know, reinvent the lie over and over and over. But this is who the Assyrians need. I turn right to it. This is who the Assyrians needed during their time of troubles. Like I got a video showing that the people from the Caucasus Mountain was taking Assyria over, and them people from them underground cities in Turkey start taking Assyria over, and how Assyria was fighting for their life, and how they come kidnap our fighters while we was on Egyptian religion since 931 BC, when Jeroboam brung it out of Egypt. Look, then the sons of Reuben, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, valiant men able to bear buckler and sword and shoot with bow and skillful in war, were 440,703 that went out to war. So those gonna be the people that the Assyrians needed. You know, they gonna need some warriors and some fighters to fight against them Scythians and them folks that's coming up out the Caucasus Mountain. Look, and the Elohim of Yah stirred up the spirit of Paul, king of Assyria, in the spirit of Tiglath, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, even the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Hala and Harbor and Har, and to the river goes on unto this day. So, the king of Assyria needed them to help them fight, to help him fight against them Scythians, them folks that was coming up out the Caucasus Mountain. Them people that was coming up out the Caucasus Mountain. And then also, we know during Assyrian times when they took them Israelites, and then how Assyria monuments were preserved. Assyria monuments were preserved, and how the enemies just recently found Israelite images of the real Israelites, and how they've been hiding them in back rooms and so forth. The Lachish relic, the Assyrian Blackstone, those are Hebrews right there. And them Hebrews don't look like no non-pigmented folks. Our enemies ruthless, man. They been lying. They been lying, and they been getting away with it for a long time, because we Hebrews, been asleep, and we ain't been challenging nobody on our heritage. But you see how the Assyrians needed to fight us, and then how we would get chased up off the land. But let me show you how everybody there after the so-called Assyrian captivity, and this is how we take our heritage back. You got to use 2 Chronicles chapter 30. 2 Chronicles chapter 30, dealing with King Hezekiah, and this is in 715 BC. So we know that it's too late for them to come try to change this history, because this is wrote down in Tanakh history. That's why I say dates and timeline help. Look, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah, and wrote letters unto Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of the Elohim at Jerusalem to keep the Passover unto the Elohim Yah of Israel. For the king had taken counsel and his princes in the congregation in Jerusalem to keep the Passover in the 2nd month. For they could not keep it at that time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. So they established a decree and made proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba even to Dan. Now, we seen that video where that dude say that the British is the tribe of Dan. But here, after the Assyrian captivity, the tribe of Dan is still home, because Hezekiah sent a letter to him, told him to come to the Passover dinner. Their name is mentioned, and it wouldn't make no sense for him to send a letter to the tribes of Israel and the tribe of Dan if they ain't there, and then he sent the letter from Beersheba to Dan. Now let's look at a map. All right, look. They go Beersheba, and he sent that letter all the way to Dan. Wouldn't make no sense to send it to Dan, and they ain't there. Wouldn't make no sense to send no letter there, and they ain't there. So we know Hezekiah showing that the tribe of Dan was at home, because he sent the letter from Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to the Passover unto the Elohim Yah of Israel at Jerusalem, for they had not done it of a long time in such sort as it was written. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah, according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Elohim Yah of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remainder of you that are escaped out of the hands of the king of Assyria. So they didn't escape out of the hand of the king of Assyria. We know the tribe of Dan did, because he sent the letter to him. All right, and then as you read, you'll get down to where it says, so the post passed from city to city throughout the country of Ephraim, Manasseh, even to Zebulun, but they laughed them to scorn and mocked them. So the Assyrian captivity couldn't have been too much of nothing, because here they got pride and arrogance, Nevertheless, the verse of Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun humbled themselves and came unto Jerusalem. Also in Judah, where they came, all right. And then as you read, you're going to read about the other tribes here, and then you're going to see that he dealing with all Israel. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim, Manasseh, Ashgar, and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves, yet they did eat the Passover, otherwise that it was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Elohim pardon everyone. So as you read, you're going to see that he dealing with the tribes of Israel. Israel's name is mentioned a whole bunch of times. And then this is in 715 BC. Okay, King Hezekiah's son Manasseh, he was wicked and wasn't doing right and was doing it Amorite religion and stuff. And then how the Assyrians did come in and snatched him real quick and took him to Babylon, which showed that those Hebrews that the Assyrians kidnapped at first helped them get control of Babylon, because Manasseh prayed and then the Creator let him come back home. And he came back home from Babylon, which that the Assyrians had took over, chased them non-pigmented folks up out of there, who would eventually, King Midas would get everybody together and then they would go rob and put Israelites out, as did happen. But once Assyria was gone off the map, King Josiah didn't mention the Assyrians no more. It was over with for the Assyrian Empire. Like I say, Hezekiah's son Manasseh was snatched and took to Babylon by the Assyrians. He got cut loose. His son Amon didn't stay on the throne long. By 2 years, they killed him. King Josiah was a baby that went all the way back to a prophecy coming from the prophet when Jeroboam brung that Egyptian religion out on us and put that mess on us. And then how he prophesied that Josiah would be born and how he would clean it up. And then he was born around about 632 BC, and he started to clean it up around about 640. And how prophet Jeremiah was around during King Josiah time, which showed that he was dealing with all Israel, and how we was all in Judah, and how we will all be chased into Africa, besides that 1% that was captured. And when we show this and we teach this to our enemies, they got to back up and relinquish our history, because they know that they are not Israelites, because the Tanakh say all the Hebrews ran into Africa. All right, King Josiah, as you read, 2 Chronicles 34, he gonna mention the tribes that wasn't mentioned during his great-grandfather time, King Josiah. So did he in the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, Simon, even unto Naphtali, with their mattocks round about. And how he went throughout Israel and cleaned up the whole kingdom and got rid of that Jeroboam Egyptian religion that go all the way back to Jeroboam. Look, I turn right to it. All praise be Almighty. All right. And behold, there came a man of Yah. This is after Solomon's death. Solomon would chase Jeroboam into Egypt, and he would stay there with his relatives until Solomon's death. And then how he would come out with the golden calves and put that on us. And then that stayed on us all the way to King Josiah, cleaned it up. And then the Egyptians would come kill King Josiah, put us back on the Egyptian religion, and how we were running to Africa to live, and how we never came back out. And then how we was enslaved from there. And this is the real history, and this is the history that our enemies don't talk about or don't want to discuss. Never have they ever said, nowhere in history have they said that the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. We don't have no publishing companies, and our enemies ain't published that nowhere. The Israelite Brotherhood is going to be like the first one bringing this history to us. All right. And this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. And behold, there came a man of Yah out of Judah by the word of the Elohim unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense, and he cried against the altar in the word of the Elohim, and said, Altar, altar, this said the Elohim, behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name, and upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high place, and places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. And then he did that. He did that, because Jeroboam come out of Egypt with that Egyptian religion and put us on us. And then King Josiah would clean it up would show that it was no 10 lost tribes, as I've shown that how he got all the tribes here and how he cleaned up the whole Israel. And Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 130 years. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Elohim, and walked in the ways of David his father, and declined neither to the right hand nor to the left. But in the 8th year of his reign, while he was yet young, he began to seek after the Yah of David his father. And in the 12th year, he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem from the high places and the groves and the carved images and the molten images. And they break down the altars of Balaam in his presence, and the images that were on high above them he cut down, and the groves and the carved images and the molten images he brake in pieces, and made dust of them, and stowed it upon the graves of them that had sacrificed unto them. And he burnt the bones of the priests upon their altars, and cleansed Judah and Jerusalem. So did he in the cities of Ephraim, Manasseh and Ephraim, Simon, even unto Naphtali, with their mattocks round about. And when he had broken down the altars and the groves, and had beaten the graven images into powder, and cut down all the idols throughout all the land of Israel, he returned to Jerusalem. So he cleaned the whole kingdom up. Look, and Josiah took away all the abomination out of all the countries that pertained to the children of Israel, and made all that was present in Israel to serve, even to serve the Elohim their Yah. All his days they departed not from following the Elohim their Yah of their fathers. And then the Egyptians would kill King Josiah, this wicked, evil Egyptian named Necho. Necho caused the death of King Josiah. It's going to be this wicked dude right there. And then we will go back into Africa. We will go back into Africa after he killed King Josiah. And then we started to do the Egyptian religion. And then how the Creator sent from the people from the north, that's going to be Ashkenazi in them, and how that they would come chase us into Africa, and how ain't nothing ever been said. And this is us going into Africa right here. If you go to Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah is our last act on the promised land for the 99%. And that how those that come back from Babylon gonna be Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, and how that 1% was destroyed so fast the Greeks got them. But this is what we see, because we kept doing the Egyptian religion after King Josiah was killed by the Egyptians, and then they put his son Jehoiakim on, and then we would go back to the Egyptian religion, and then we would get chased off the land into Africa, all the tribes, as I showed it. Everybody was there during Hezekiah time and King Josiah's time, and how our enemies would come from the east. Our enemies would come from the east and would chase us into Africa. You know, and it come to pass that when Jeremiah had made an end of speaking unto all the people all the words of the Elohim their Yah, for which the Elohim their Yah had sent him to them, even all these words, then spake Azariah the son of Hoshea, and Johan the son of Ker, and all the proud men, saying unto Jeremiah, Thou speakest falsely. The Elohim our Yah hath not sent thee to say, Go not into Egypt to sojourn there, but Barak setteth thee on edge against us for to deliver us into the hand of the Chaldeans, that they might put us to death and carry us away to Babylon. Carry us away to Babylon. And we didn't want that, and the whole land was empty of Hebrews. For this said the Elohim of hosts, the Yah of Israel, ye have seen all the evil that I have brought upon Jerusalem and all the cities of Judah, and behold, this day they are desolation, and no man dwelleth therein. It was over with. It was gone. And then we said this on the way into Africa. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the people that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwell in the land of Egypt, and Pathros answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do so whatever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her. as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food and were well and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have been consumed by the sword and by famine. So we see it because we wasn't doing the Egyptian religion that, the reason why we wasn't doing the Egyptian religion was why Ashkenazi was coming and getting us and chasing us up off the land, because we wasn't in Egypt doing their religion, and how we had a long evil relationship with Egypt from the time that we exodus. As I got videos showing how them Egyptians left with us and how they kept us on a religion off and on and stuff, and how that messed us up the whole time. And then how wicked Solomon married the Egyptian and then let the Egyptian culture bring us down. Our whole slavery come about because King Solomon, and that's another thing, Hebrews, our enemies always making lies and false history about Solomon. And it's a known fact that the Creator was around with us Israelites from the time that we left Egypt to the time that we broke covenant in the book of Jeremiah, saying that we was going into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion, and how the Creator was with us the whole time. So ain't no Hebrews left during Solomon time to go to some other land to live, and then we didn't write about it, and then the Creator didn't make an issue about it, because the Hebrews had to be at the temple 3 times a year. 3 times a year you had to be at the temple. So our enemies start making false history, saying that some of the people left during Solomon time and went and lived in other parts of the world, and how we know that's a lie, because the Creator was with us all the way up to the time that we broke covenant and ran into Africa, as the book of Jeremiah shows. But this is how we was messed up with the Egyptian religion. This is Ezekiel 23. The word of the Elohim came again unto me, saying, Son of man, there were 2 women, the daughters of one mother, and they committed whoredoms in Egypt. They committed whoredoms in their youth. There were their breasts pressed, and there they bruised the tents of their virginity. So the Egyptians bust us open. It was the Egyptians that bust us open, and it was the Egyptian culture that, ruined us. See? Then said I unto them, Cast ye every man the abomination of his eyes, and defile not yourself with the idols of Egypt. I am the Elohim, your Yah. It's like, we was messed up on that Egyptian religion, and it was that Egyptian religion that got us chased into Africa, where we was eventually enslaved. We were supposed to be a priestly nation. That's like some of you Hebrews just waking up. I know you up against a whole lot. You up against a whole lot, because you got a whole bunch of information to absorb. But if you listen to me, I done cut everything down in half. You get straight to the point. You get straight to the issue of what happened to us. I got the history that the enemy can't come change. He can't come make up lies. He can't refute. He can't do nothing with this history that the Israelite Brotherhood show, that how we Israelites ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. And that's what the book of Jeremiah is about. Basically, that's what the whole Tanakh sums up to. Them Israelites running into Africa to live. And then that's how we broke covenant. And then that's how we get to take our heritage back from our enemies, because we get to show how we are the Israelites that broke covenant and ran into Africa, and how that's the only history that the Tanakh support, and that how all that other history gonna come from our enemies creating history and going to other lands. While we was in Africa, our enemies went to other lands and did trade and converted folks, and it's that simple. It's that simple now. Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. We can take our heritage back. We can take our heritage back now. We can take our heritage back. It's easy to get it back. All we got to do is say that it wasn't no lost tribes, and that those lost tribe myths are lies. And we can have you know what I'm saying, we could be united, you know what I'm saying, off this right here. Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite.